welcome back to Memphis Moves, and today we're going to a closing office. So it's closing day and there are some important things you want to know before you get to that table. One that I'm going to say right from the start is once you're approved with your loan, do not open a line of credit, do not buy anything, just stay where you are, because when you get to the closing table the day before, typically your credit is going to be run again, and you definitely don't want anything new to pop up where you're unable to close at that time. So that's just one tip. There are a few other tips, and we'll go over those with our closing attorney. We're actually going to go to see Shelly Rothman. She's an attorney with Griffin, Clift, Everton, and Mashmeyer, and that's a mouthful, but she's great. Can't wait for you to meet her. Okay, so we are now here at Griffin, Clift, Everton, and Mashmeyer, the attorney's office that I use for all my closings, unless somebody happens to say we want to use someone else, because I trust them. I know 100% it's going to be, anything that could possibly come up is going to be taken care of. And I'm sitting with Shelly Rothman, who handles all my closings for me, along with her team. So Shelly, we're just getting some information today for people. Maybe there are a lot of people that have never been to a closing before, and it seems pretty scary. And honestly, walking in today and I see this stack of papers in a folder in front of me, I, as a buyer, would be like, oh my gosh, what is all this about?
So, first, Jodi, thank you very much for having me and compliments. I sure appreciate that. No, we're really not scary at all. But I will say I love first-time home buyers. I do. They're so excited. I'm so excited. They're so scared, and I just love calming them down and being a part of that whole great experience for them. So the way the process works basically is, let's say you send us a contract and we're representing your buyer.
Yes.
Okay? Then we go on and we order what's known as a title search. We examine the title to make sure that the buyer is getting clear marketable title. We work with the other side if there's any issues to be cleared up. And we work with the lenders. And we pull it together and we work with your buyers. We hold their hand through it as needed, answer any questions they may have. We remind them, and I know you do too, oh, don't forget to get your insurance. And we tell them it's not going to be that bad, and by the time you get to closing, it's going to be a breeze at closing.
Right.
So we get all that handled. We work with the lender to get the closing package in. We coordinate with the buyer the amount of money they need to close and how to get it to us. And we try to keep it as painless as possible. We do have the good funds law in Tennessee. So we do have to get most funds in the form of a wire over a certain amount of money, which has made it a little difficult at the moment because at this time some of the bank's lobbies are closed. So we reach out to our people and we say, you want to go ahead and call and make an appointment if it's necessary, and we'll get you a figure. And then they wire money in, lender wires money in, and I say, welcome to the purchase of your new home. Very exciting, very big moment. And we get photo ID. I do recommend that people bring 2 different forms of photo ID. A lot of lenders only require 1. Once in a while they require 2. Driver's license is always good. Passport, of course, legal license carrying permits are good.
Do you recommend they bring a checkbook just in case?
You know, that's a really good question. Just in case there's some last minute tweaks and it's a little bit short on the wire, definitely bring a checkbook. It's in our discretion, of course, if it came in a little bit higher than was anticipated, to accept a check for the difference. So that's an excellent question. We don't send people out to go get another wire for $25 or for $40 because wires do cost a little bit of money. But we do walk people through it and answer all their questions.
And then as far as the wiring, because I know that there's a lot of fraud going on right
Yes,
now.
yes.
But your office has a system in place.
Yes. The crooks have gotten so sophisticated now that they've actually learned how to intercept correspondence, email between closing agencies, realtors, buyers, and sellers. So the way we do it is we send wiring instructions by secure email. We notify our clients that we were about to send them a secure email.
Mm-hmm.
We do not send the entire account number,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to call my known office number and talk to one of us to go over all the wiring instructions and get the last 4 digits.
Perfect.
We carry a cyber policy.
Mm-hmm.
So when we follow our procedures, which is verification of every single wire personally, and
Mhm.
keep note of it and just keep up with what their guidelines are,
Right.
we do have coverage for that.
Yes.
But the best protection is just to pay attention if things are spelled wrong, if things sound funny, if all of a sudden something doesn't look right, if you put your mouse over an email address and it doesn't look like the email address really of the person that it's coming from, it's better to just stop. You just stop, you call, there's no such thing as a silly question.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people call with everything and they sound a little embarrassed, and I tell them, no, I'm thrilled to death that you called if you have any question, any second thoughts at all.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, what about, so they wire the money.
Right.
And I know at closing, we go through all the paperwork, but then the funding has to happen. So
Okay.
it actually has to go from I assume
Let me
your
walk you
office
through
to the sellers, if we're talking with a buyer.
Right, let me walk you through that. So my brand new first time home buyer sits down with me and we go through the numbers slowly, carefully, make sure they understand everything. I review the terms of the loan, the note, the deed of trust. So when we're done closing, we have the buyer's money and we have the lender's money.
Mhm.
Well, the seller's got to get paid.
Yes.
Okay, they're looking for their money. So we coordinate with the seller's closing agency.
Mhm.
When we are done and ready to swap with them,
Mhm.
the way it works is they will send us the original documents and we will wire them the seller's proceeds, anything that they're paying off of the seller's side.
Mhm.
So that's called the swap, and that takes a little time. A lot of people think that as soon as they're done closing, they're going to have immediate possession of the property, but that's changed over the years. The seller really doesn't want someone to move into their house until they know that at least their closing agency has all of their money.
Mhm.
But by the same token, we don't want to release the money until we know we have a deed to the property.
Mhm.
More often than not, I would say, or maybe 50-50, some people come to closing in the morning and they literally have their movers scheduled for 3 hours later.
Uh-huh, that's happened, yes. Yes.
Not necessarily a good idea unless that is agreed to in advance by by
Yes.
both parties.
Right.
If somebody wants to move in that day,
Mhm. Mhm.
circumstances, whatever it is, you have to set it up way in advance, schedule it early in the morning, make sure the other side closes early in the morning, and everybody knows what's up.
Right. So
Yeah.
you mentioned about the transferring and what needs to happen to get funded. Is there a time of the month that you would recommend closing versus another time of the month? Does that make a difference?
As a closing attorney,
Yeah.
I would tell people the very last day of the month is not the best time to close if you want to have a calm,
Mhm.
quiet, non-rushed experience. Because historically, people close on the last day of the month because they only have to pay 1 day's interest to that lender if they're a buyer.
I see.
Okay? We end up getting backed up when everybody's wanting to close the last day of the month, and you're not going to get possession that day
Mhm.
unless the seller has already agreed to it.
Right.
I would say do it like 3 days before the end of the month.
Yep.
And the worst possible time is the last day of the month that falls out on a Friday.
Right.
That's
Right.
like a double whammy.
Yeah.
But we're glad to have anybody anytime.
Sure.
But if, just for your own experience, it's probably best not to schedule for the end of the month.
Right, gotcha. I couldn't agree more.
So thanks again for watching another episode of Memphis Moves. Obviously, we are in the month of December. It is really cold outside and rainy and yucky, but luckily we're inside at this beautiful coffee shop. Sweet Lala's actually is where we are, and you can see they have a gorgeous tree. So once again, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes coming up.